This whole world is wild at heart and weird on top, and it's all films worth watching. This is a new podcast where me, Thomas Newby, and Jeff Young, we're making a list. We're checking it twice. We don't care who's naughty or nice. It's all about movies. We're going to watch all the movies that matter over the course of our lifetime. Today, we're looking at Wild at Heart, which is a David Lynch, a 1990 American romantic crime comedy drama thriller. That's a lot of add-ons. By Mr. David Lynch, the recently deceased David Lynch. We actually discussed this, watching this movie maybe like a week before he passed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Something like that.
I don't know if you've been following. I'm curious, Jeff. Well, before we jump into all this stuff, because I want to talk a lot about Lynch. How you doing? Well, first off, I mean, not that anybody should know, but it's kind of weird that Jeff and I are in the same room. We're not typically living in the same place, but I'm home visiting Idaho for a few months. So I've been here working on a project at the College of Idaho. I'm directing a musical called the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. If you happen to live in the area and you're here around April, you should come out in Caldwell and see all my hard work. And Jeff was kind enough to invite me into his studio to talk about today's movie.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I guess we should probably do introductions. We actually, we talked, we've had some tests. Oh my God. Damn it. All right. We'll edit that out.
Sure.
Or something. A really long, beautiful crossfade between the beginning or the end of when the nonsense started and then the end of the nonsense. And then we're back in. If you don't know me, if you do know me, you might know me from musical projects such as The Green Zoo or By Fire and Sword. I'm also a theatrical sound designer and a director. Jeff, how would people know you if they're being introduced to you for the first time?
Probably most likely through my book influencer content on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Musically, it would be through By Fire and Sword with you or Wield and Woe.
Yeah. If you know me as the Reverend, you'll know Jeff as Brother Jeffrey, sort of the idea. And if that is all nonsense, go check out By Fire and Sword. It's a hoot and a half. Anyway, it's all films worth watching. We're going through the list. We're watching all the films. We're deciding whether they're, maybe not all the films that we think might be worth watching. We're deciding whether or not they are worth watching by the end of our time together. So today, again, we were discussing 1990's Wild at Heart, which is a David Lynch movie. Jeff, what's your relationship to David Lynch?
Aside from having watched Wild at Heart last week, my only experience with David Lynch has been Twin Peaks.
Oh, your only ever?
That's it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you think of Twin Peaks?
I love Twin Peaks. So I've seen the first 2 seasons. I've not seen any of the movies, and I haven't seen like the 2017 revamp
Sure.
of Twin Peaks. But the first 2 seasons I loved.
And what about it really works for you?
There's how campy it is. I like how campy it is and kind of like off the wall goofball, and the melodrama of it. Like, I think is my favorite thing. It's just weird. Like, and it's kind of like idiosyncratically weird of things at that time where, I think that was a period of time where like TV maybe was not like overly serious, but was like big budget and maybe more intended to be taken seriously. And that show is so off the wall weird, and not like goofy, but just like David Lynch weird in a way that like only David Lynch is. That, I don't know, I really like it. Like, just the over the top performances. I like the story. It does that 90s thing where it throws back to the 50s a lot.
Yeah.
In the way that like us now in the 2020s and the 2010s threw back to like the 80s. So that's always kind of a weird thing to be like, this show was popular when I was in diapers. And so that's kind of a fun thing. And it also is just as like, have had friends who've always said that Twin Peaks was really cool. So I don't know, a lot of things. I liked the music a lot. I like that 90s, that late 80s, early 90s fashion and the way the show is shot. I don't know. It kind of was just like a perfect storm of weirdness.
Yeah,
for
totally.
me.
Totally. And I mean, if you get to know more Lynch gets weird with it. That's sort of his thing. Yeah, you were talking about the idea that David Lynch is like a throwback to the 50s. That idea. And that's a big thing of his. He has this like really stilted, like most of the stuff that he does, not all of it, but he's got kind of an interesting career. But a lot of it is like has this kind of stilted, like inspired by like 1950s film vibe. I think is like it kind of reminds me of Tim Burton. It does that same thing where it's like they were both, I think, watching a lot of trashy TV and movies when they were kids, and it's like bleeds into the stuff that they're doing. Okay, so that is interesting. That's interesting. This is not for me. Okay, so I haven't watched all of David Lynch, but I'm pretty close. And David Lynch is kind of hit and miss with me. For instance, Twin Peaks doesn't work for me at all.
That's wild.
Yeah, I think it's because of that like 90s aesthetic that you were like you find comforting.
I love it.
I find that grating.
Oh,
to me, and to me, Twin Peaks is like spooky episodes of Roseanne.
I hate that you said that. I can see it though, like to a degree, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if you ever get a chance, you should watch Twin Peaks: The Return and Fire Walk with Me. They're definitely closer, more connected to like things like Wild at Heart than say your soap opera that Twin Peaks sort of started with. Sure. But it's really interesting. Like Twin Peaks: The Return, I think is like 20, maybe 30 episodes of TV that I can't remember which corporation, but they gave him like $30 million or something, like $40 million, and we're like, go make your Twin Peaks. It's like the craziest sort of like. It's like the peak of that prestige TV when they were like just giving those prestige directors money to like do things. And he, I think, did the most with it. It's like a 40-hour movie. It's interesting because, and I know this because I listen to the Blank Check podcast, which you and I think have talked about before off camera, but it's a podcast that I listen to that follows filmographies of directors, and they just did David Lynch. An interesting thing that I learned about him, I just totally lost my train of thought, man. I hate when that happens.
Blank Check.
Yeah.
Learned about David Lynch.
Yeah, I remember that. He's the guy. He did Eraserhead, which is a great movie that you should definitely see if you like the weirdness.
And the guy from Eraserhead is in Wild at Heart, and he's in Twin Peaks.
He's in Wild at Heart? Who is he in Wild at Heart?
When he's at the trailer park, and he's like the crazy guy.
The crazy
it's
guy
like,
at the trailer
It's like when we
park.
meet Bobby Peru for the first time. He's at the trailer park. He's like, me and my dog.
Yeah. He's like one of the dudes.
Yeah, that's the Eraserhead.
Right,
guy.
when we sort of like get where like the road ends and we're in sort of like that weird no man's land.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting because I remember what I was talking about. For Twin Peaks: The Return, most of the time with TV, they do this really specific thing where they're like, you can only have so many cast members on each episode of TV, and so you can't just like put somebody in a scene for TV usually because you have to pay them like they're acting in the whole episode for showing up in that. So when they did Twin Peaks: The Return, it's why you don't see very often you don't see very often just like clips of people like actors. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. A little side tangent. Did you ever watch that sitcom How I Met Your Mother?
I've never seen more than a minute of that show.
There's this convention where there are these kids that he's talking to, and sometimes they're just like, especially in the later seasons because they got so much older, there's just like scenes of them like listening as the dad's like telling the story. And each time those actors appeared on screen as just like I'm listening, Dad, tell me the story that's like the introduction to the sitcom, those two actors got paid full, like they did a full episode of TV.
That rocks.
Yeah, it's cushy. Anyway, so with this Twin Peaks: The Return, he was like, give me $40 million or however many $1 million, and I'm going to go shoot my thing, and then I'm going to edit it together. And I don't even know how many episodes it's going to be, and I'm going to edit it together like almost like one giant movie. In a way that like doesn't make financial sense at all. There's like a reason that it hasn't happened since.
Sure.
It's because it's like not a fiscally responsible way to make TV.
Yeah, there's something weird about filmmakers like David Lynch where I think almost having the constrained budget and the limited resources makes them almost more creative. It more creative, but it also curtails how weird you can be when you don't have $40 million to be weird with.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a part of that terrifies me where like, I think half of the charm of Twin Peaks is that it is kind of low budge.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't know if like high budge Twin Peaks works. Like rich and weird, I don't think has the same charm as like DIY and weird, But I mean, you should go check it out. Here's the thing. Yeah. It's got like the shittiest CGI, but
he's one of those guys that like it's weird, but it's like bad on purpose
Yeah.
in a way that like adds to the weird kind of kitschy novelty of it. It's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're I'd be curious, those of you who are into this that are Lynch fans, if Jeff needs a suggestion on like what David Lynch to check out. Here are my suggestions based on this conversation. The very first film he ever made was Eraserhead, and if you like low budget weirdness, that is like the epitome of low budget weirdness.
Okay.
Definitely check out Eraserhead. It's strange and funny and shot in black and white and has like weird puppets that he made himself in the basement. Just incredible. It's one of those things that's like, I can't believe somebody vomited this out.
Who came up with this?
Beautiful. The next movie he makes is a huge, big budget drama that wins an Oscar for, I think, best screenplay or maybe best film.
Blue Velvet?
It's The Elephant Man, and it's like you would never know. It was like produced by that guy who did The Producers and Mel Brooks.
Oh, okay.
But Mel Brooks did this thing when he was at the top of his game where he would produce like interesting projects that he was really into, but he wouldn't. He was worried about people not taking them so seriously, so much that he would like take his name off of them. And this is one of those things. It's like the story of the real life Elephant Man, that guy with like the physical deformities that made it to the circus. And it's beautiful and it's like Oscar bait. And I think it's mostly in black and white, which Eraserhead is too. But Elephant Man it's fantastic, and it's like really a straight down the middle sort of Oscar baity thing with like beautiful makeup effects. It's crazy. It's the sort of thing that like you're surprised. I'm surprised that if you watch those two films, you're sort of surprised that he didn't end up like making more regular, like big budget, crazy films, because he definitely had the chops to do that. But the next film he made, his third film, is the first Dune, and that is such a colossal.
I've always wanted to see that.
Yeah, I've never made it all the way through. I turned it on once and like lost interest really quickly. What I've heard is that people who, I don't know what is going on. I don't know. Is it because I put two? Is it because I put two fingers in the air? A finger in the air? I don't know. Come back, balloons. No, come back. We miss you.
I don't know if that recorded even.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I hope you guys see that. I hope it's not just like. I swear to God, there were balloons that filled the room. At least it looked like over there. Maybe it didn't look like it back here. I promise you. What was I talking about? David Lynch. He was making good movies.
Dune, and the things that if you like the David Lynch's Dune,
right. If you like the new Dune, people like take the pressure off of the old Dune. I think people like used to like really not like the old Dune because it's like Dune is a hard book to adapt for anybody. Yeah. And so David Lynch is like, didn't cut the mustard, but now that there's, a decent version, people can, I've heard that if you go back, it's like enjoyable. Sure. But anyway, that was supposed to be such a like humbling experience for him that he's like, I'm not going to do that shit again. I'm doing shit like Twin Peaks and stuff like Wild at Heart, where he obviously has enough control that he can just like be as weird and take his time with it as he wants. He starts doing stuff like on his own terms rather than trying to like get into the studio system. Yeah. Which, for better or worse. But again, would love to hear anybody else's suggestions for what Jeff should watch as far as a David Lynch fan. Mulholland Drive. People love Mulholland Drive. I have a little problem with the more he gets into the weird and the less he's like structured or he's like dealing with a structure, the more grating I find it. The more it not pretentious necessarily, but just like not so effective.
Sure.
Yeah. So Mulholland Drive for me has this kind of like stiltedness that's supposed to be like, I think a throwback to like old school like 50s Hollywood, but to me it's like, oh, this is just kind of reading like dumb.
Okay.
But that's people love Mulholland Drive, and Mulholland Drive does this thing where it's like it's kind of stilted and weird and kitschy, and then there's a moment where it like snaps and it's like this like whole beautiful recollection, and that moment is beautiful, but the lead up to it is kind of like, G-men kind of talking like this sort of a thing,
like Mad Men.
Yeah. Which is kind of like his standard deal. I mean, this Wild at Heart had it too, but it's like in the greaser version of it, where it's like this is like somebody doing a specific take on a piece of television or a piece of media they've been taking in. You know what I mean? It's like a commentary on that. Laura Dern does this thing where she like is like walking around with her hands in her hair and like pulling her hair up. Yeah. And I was like, what is that? Like, she's like striking a pose that's so, it was like at times I was watching a bad play. you know?
Yeah, it's a very weird like histrionic thing. Like I remember, hello theater degree, talking to you.
Ooh la la.
That thing where like our acting professor always used to be like, when you're about to say the line, don't go and then say the line, just say the line and save the emotion of the breath. That's kind of what that's doing to me, is like there's something she wants to express but she can't do it with her words, and so it's like sailor baby, and it's very weird. It's very high school drama play like acting weird.
Yeah, like kind of like Tennessee Williams. There's like this like pulpiness to it. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, we should probably just move into talking a little bit about like what we thought about Wild at Heart. So for me, when Lynch works, I think it works because he's putting his weirdness against like a form. So this one, Wild at Heart, worked for me better than some of his other stuff. I think generally, like, there's one that I've tried to watch. I've tried to watch it twice this year now, and I haven't made it through, called Inland Empire. That's a movie he made with Laura Dern where he's like basically shooting on a camcorder like around Laura Dern's house, and they just like make it up together. And there's a full cast, and it's about Laura Dern as this character that's like shooting a movie that's supposed to be haunted, and as they're shooting it, it's like delving into like losing itself inside of the movie, you know, like is she in the movie right now or is she just hanging around at her house? But it's so stilted, and then on top of that it doesn't have any of the, I don't know what you thought about the cinematography, I'll have to ask you, but I thought Wild at Heart was beautifully shot. Inland Empire has all of the same weird stiltedness, but it's like shot on like a shitty video camera of his, and so it just looks like a home video to me in a way that like that I guess I just have never finished it. I've tried 3 or 4 times now and have not made it through. Jeff, what are your sort of overall thoughts on Wild at Heart?
Blanket statement, I didn't enjoy one freaking second of this movie. Like, I can get very specific about why I didn't like it if we want to do that. But just as a vibe, this was David Lynch weird that did not work for me. One, not Nicolas Cage's best performance. Like that drove me a little crazy. I was like, God, he is pushing so hard on this one. But also, like, I don't remember, this was around the time he did Moonstruck too. And I kind of liked Moonstruck back in the day. But this was like Nick Cage weird that I did not enjoy. I thought Laura Dern was good for what she was doing. I think just the whole vibe, like if it didn't feel like it was poorly put together. I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
Like, I think he has a clear vision and I think it's executed. I think I just didn't like it in this instance.
Yeah.
I don't really care for that like 90s throwback to the 50s thing. I don't know, maybe that's just tired for me, but it probably wasn't then.
Sure.
In 90. Like,
Sure.
But now I'm like, yes, we get it. James Dean, very cool. I didn't like that. A lot of the performances were so melodramatic as to be confusing.
Yeah.
That I didn't understand. Like the gal who plays her mom, Marietta, I was like, what is she doing? Like, I don't understand why her character was that over the top, considering she's in like 4 scenes.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't understand why we need this from her. I did like Willem Dafoe.
Those weird braces and baked bean
teeth.
Yeah,
his little baby teeth. And like, yeah, the Willem Dafoe bit worked for me. I was like, thank God somebody with some chops in this movie. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like the story really, but like the production of it was really good. Like I liked the way it looked. I just don't like the story. It was very David Lynchy for me in a way that I did not like.
Yeah, totally. I can totally
vibe.
understand that. I think this one worked for me a little bit because like when it moves into that melodrama, it like I know that we're playing with, to me it was like we were playing with like archetypes, like greaser archetypes, you know what I mean? Like we've got our Romeo and Juliet and we've got this like this force that's like trying to keep them together, trying to keep them apart as much as you can, you know what I mean? So I mean, like I definitely understand why this would like rub you the wrong way. I think it's the same like what I was saying with Mulholland Drive. If you ever watch that, most of that movie rubs me the wrong way because it's like it is playing around in those melodramatic ways, but in a way that like it doesn't resonate with me at all. This one I was like, oh, this feels like I'm watching like, you know, a commentary on those Tennessee Williams, like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, or something like that. Oh, I wonder if we were being filmed there. Sorry, we had the camera pop on and off.
I don't know,
I
that's
guess
weird.
I guess we'll find out. I guess we'll find out when we get to the
Why I
edit.
did that.
But yeah, so I could definitely see it. I could definitely see it not working for you. Another suggestion for you for David Lynch films, especially if you like Twin Peaks, because it's got who's the main FBI officer?
Kyle MacLachlan.
Kyle MacLachlan, yeah. Kyle MacLachlan's first thing he did with him was Blue Velvet, and that's got Dennis Hopper as the villain, and who
Laura
else?
Dern's in it.
Yeah. Laura Dern is one of Lynch's favorites.
Yeah, she's in a bunch.
Yeah, Isabella Rossellini is in it too. As
She's
like
in this one.
Yeah. He picks people that he
dated Isabella Rossellini.
Yeah,
for a while
he
or
does that
whatever.
same thing that David Lynch does, where he like finds people in his life that he likes, and then he just like keeps
like Tim
working.
Burton? Yeah.
Keeps working with them again and again and again. But I think it's also like Lynch is asking them to do weird stuff, you know, and I think he finds people that he can get comfortable with to do that because like he really like explores what is acting, like what you could pull away when you start looking at like all of his stuff out there comparatively. Yeah. All right. Well, so I mean, so you're saying Jeff's not a major fan. I'm, pretty up on it. Oh, I was also saying, yeah, definitely. If this is too much Lynch for you, but you sort of like the noiriness of Twin Peaks, Blue Velvet is maybe like the sweet spot for you because it's kind of a crime thriller. Like Kyle MacLachlan is home. I think he's home visiting for the summer. Is a small town, and he finds a thumb in like a yard, and that starts a whole like I just found a thumb here that nobody's even looking for this thumb.
Cool.
And that's like the start of this whole. You get into like weird small city crime. We'll talk about it as we go through this movie, but that was one of my favorite things. Is like the weirdness of small town criminals, which is another thing that like Lynch shows up a lot in Lynch. But when in this movie, it was like a lot of like there was like a guy sitting on the toilet, and there was like a prostitute. I'm assuming she was a prostitute, like a topless person that he's like watching while he's sitting on the toilet, and he's like, "Yes, I've got all the money in the world, and I'm living the good life." You know what I mean?
He was like on the phone, wasn't he? Like he was talking.
Yeah. They were like talking to each other, and he was like not finished. He was taking a break from watching her while sitting on the toilet. To have that conversation.
That's the kind of weird stuff that I'm like, I don't understand this. Like,
it makes me laugh so hard.
I don't think it's funny, and I don't understand. Like, it doesn't add to the movie. It's just weird to me. I was like, it's not that funny. I mean, maybe it's just not my sense of humor.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't want to like give you homework, but you should definitely watch Blue Velvet and see, because it's playing around with the same stuff, but in a more grounded way. They have this section where like they get Dennis Hopper like catches Kyle MacLachlan. He's like the big bad guy, and he's like, "Get in the car, we're going for a ride," and like takes him to this place, and they end up in some like the small little living room with a guy that he's either selling drugs to or selling drugs for him, with a bunch of like overweight women that are like hanging out and just like partying. And they're like, it's this thing that's like, like the seediness and like, it's got all the seediness and grossness of crime, but without any of the like superficial veneer that I think makes crime seem so cool in most films. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's like, I'm keeping all of the, and which I think he's doing a lot, especially with this Wild at Heart movie, was so much nudity and banging and talk of sexual assault and showing sexual assault. It's that thing where he's exploring why we're attracted to that kind of sleaze, but he's doing it in a way that I think he's like he's just trying to look at it openly, as opposed to like using it as in an exploitative way to like keep us interested. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't mind tantalizing us, but I think he's more interested in being like, I just tantalized you with this idea, and now we're going to like explore together why you as the audience member found that tantalizing, you sick weirdo. Like, why do we think these, like, to me, well, let's start through. Let's jump into the plot. We'll talk through it a little bit. Yep. I got Wikipedia open here. Thank you, the wonderful, wonderful folks at Wikipedia, for providing us the plot today. We're going to go through Wild at Heart's plot. In Cape Fear, North Carolina, lovers Lula Fortune and Sailor Ripley are separated after he is jailed for killing a man who attacked him with a knife. The assailant, Bobby Ray Lemon, was hired by Lula's mother, Marietta. This is so interesting. I was wondering how Wikipedia was going to cover this because, like, the plot of this movie seems so simple, but it's so convoluted with just, like, nonsense. Mm-hmm. There's so many people for, like, no reason. Essentially, you're watching two people that love each other running away from like one of their moms who doesn't want them to be together. And that's basically what you're watching.
Yeah.
But you're getting a ton of this stuff. Let's see, what were we talking about? Again, the assailant that Nicolas Cage stabbed to death was hired by Lula, who's Laura Dern's mother, Marietta. Upon Sailor's release, 22 months later, Lula picks him up outside prison where she hands him his snakeskin jacket. And that was one of those moments where I watched this movie like 1.5 times. We were originally going to record this last week, and then I watched it then, and then watched it a little bit, most of it today. But there was this thing where he was like, he saw that jacket, and he's like, that jacket is a symbol of my, I can't remember exactly what he said.
It's like a symbol of his freedom, or it's like a wild spirit or something to that
Yeah,
effect.
It was so, I mean, melodramatic in a way that, like, I can understand why you wouldn't like it, but it has this like melodramatic I'm telling instead of showing, like old serial way.
A couple of times.
Yeah, a ton of times.
There's like a number of times he sees that jacket and he's like, have I ever told you that jacket reminds me of my freedom? I was like, shut up.
Or they'll be like sitting around smoking cigarettes and he'll be like, and they'll be like, Laura Dern, you were sexually assaulted. Can you talk a little bit about that? And it's like, yeah, that's sort of a defining characteristic of mine. In a way that's like, it's poking fun at, I think, movies or shows like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof or A Streetcar Named Desire, where you're like, I'm being weird, but do you know why I'm being weird? Let me tell you my sad background story.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it's poking fun at that, but then also like clipping into, I don't know, it's almost impossible to describe. The use of editing, like, I think Lynch takes a very kind of like standard greaser story and then just like lynches it out with the sound, with these heavy use of like drones and weird choices for needle drops and music. Yeah, I could see it not working for you, but this one was working for me. Anyway, what were we talking about here? They pick him up outside of prison. Lula picks him up outside of prison, hands him that snakeskin jacket, Then they have sex in a hotel room and go see speed metal band Power Mad. Jeff, I was going to ask you, do you know, what do you think of Power Mad, or what do you think of these musical cues?
The Power Mad bit is one of the more frustrating things for me, because one, they use the same like 30 seconds of the same Power Mad song like 4 times. It's the same song snippet every time.
Yeah,
and that drove me crazy.
Well, okay, so this is a thing that drives it didn't drive me crazy about this, but it does drive me crazy about Twin Peaks. I find by the time like I'm 3 episodes into Twin Peaks, that theme song that they use over and over and over again, it drives me. I like it too, but they use it so many times. You're like,
doesn't bother me at all. But
this
yeah,
does, huh?
Yeah, because I was like, that's a band with an actual discography. There's other stuff, so it's like, I don't know why you're just showing the same 30-second intro from the same song. It shows up when he beats that dude to death at the beginning of the movie. That's the song they're playing when they go see them at the concert before he gets interrupted with the fist fight. And then there's like another fight towards the end, I think, when he's getting jumped, where that same song shows up again.
Yeah, it's I mean, David Lynch is like heavy-handed to the point where I think if you don't appreciate it, you don't appreciate it. But I think this time he's like, this is the violence theme. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a way that's like, it would be, if it was like an old Greaser movie, it would probably be like some twangy, bluesy guitar rock.
Yeah. It does show up pretty much every time there's some sort of physical violence.
Yeah.
And the first time it caught me way off guard, because like when he walks out with his stupid Elvis haircut and his like leopard, like, or his snakeskin jacket, I was like, okay, this is going to be like, rockabilly or greaser music or some other stuff. And then as soon as he's beating that dude to death on the stairs, it's like a thrash song. I was like, this is a weird movie. And then it just kept going. So it's like the Power Mad inclusion was weird, because I don't know in what world David Lynch associates those two with like a speed metal band.
Yeah.
The aesthetic is so weird that I had a hard time suspending my disbelief that those two would be like, yeah, let's go to a metal bar. I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Well, I think he's like, I think, especially in the 90s, I think he's conflating the two, where it's like, this is the equivalent of like Greasers in the 50s going to see a rock and roll band. Because
Sure.
like, we'll talk about like in the plot, they go to the club, right, and see Power Mad play.
Mm-hmm.
And at first they're like, they're sort of dancing,
Mm-hmm.
like sort of greasery style, but too Power Mad until, some guy is like
bumps into
flirting with
Lula,
bumping with Lula, and then he stops the whole band like Fonzie. He's able to like put his fist to the air and is like,
Hold on
yo,
there, Phyllis. Yeah.
he beats the crap out of that guy who's harassing his woman, and then he like, it's like he feels like he's like losing the crowd, and then he like gets tossed the mic and sings what is it, that Elvis Presley song "Love Me."
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, and the band is still playing. Like it goes immediately from them playing like their original Power Mad music to them playing Elvis.
Yep.
Yeah.
I hated that. I hated that.
Oh, well, I loved it, but that's okay. Agree to disagree.
Like, there's something about like the pizza thrash dudes in this movie. All of a sudden, are just like, as a professional musician and someone who makes music, not for a living, but someday maybe. It's just like, God, that's so dumb. They don't even have the equipment to do that. Like, and I get that it's like, it's a dream sequence, but, or like, not whatever, like actually a dream sequence, but like that kind of thing.
It's
like,
David Lynch rules.
Yeah,
like,
like it takes, like,
to
it's like kind of out of time, but not really. But yeah, I just was like, okay, here we go again. Something stupid. Like, it just did not work for me. I did not like that.
Sure. Fair enough. They do a rendition of Elvis Presley's song "Love Me." Later, back at the hotel, I think, when Lula asks why Sailor didn't sing her his favorite song, which is "Love Me Tender," he tells her he's only going to ever sing that to his future wife. Sailor asks Lula to run away to California with him, despite knowing that this will break his parole. The mom, Marietta, asks her on-off boyfriend, private detective Johnny Farragut, to find them and bring them back. Ooh, pardon me, dinging up. Let's see. Sorry, what were we saying? God, who was that playing her friend? I love him. What is his name?
Harry Dean Stanton.
Harry Dean Stanton. Harry Dean Stanton is another person that like, he just kind of has like this like nonchalantness that really works in the David Lynch world. You know, like I think you can feel like you can put him in any weird situation. You're like, there's an alien eating the ship in the back, and he's just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was like, I think the only other thing I've seen him in was Alien.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he was old in Alien, so I think he like aged out of film by the time I got into movies.
All right, well, let me pull up. I want to pull up some of his stuff real quick because I love Harry Dean Stanton. Let's see if there's anything else that you maybe have not thought about. He was in Godfather Part 2, which I didn't realize. He's in Escape from New York.
Okay, I have seen that.
Yeah. Have you seen Repo Man, 1984?
No.
Oh man, that's like one of those first movies where like the people in LA were discovering like what punk music is, and so it's like not quite there. He plays like a literal repo man who's like chasing around a car all over Los Angeles, and then they run into like aliens. It's total trash movie, but it's really great. Let me see here. He's in Rango. He was in Seven Psychopaths. In 1984, he was in Paris, Texas, which if you're ever looking for, it's like a kind of a weird tone piece, and basically he plays this old man who like somebody finds him and he's just like out in the middle of nowhere in Paris, Texas, and he had just like walked there. It's this really kind of weird tone piece, definitely worth checking out at some point in your life. But anyway, Harry Dean Stanton is playing the mom's lover, Johnny Farragut, and she sends him out to find both Sailor and Lula to find them and bring them back. And then unbeknownst to Harry Dean Stanton, Marietta also hires her other boyfriend, the much scarier gangster Marcelo Santos, to track them down and kill Sailor. When Santos calls mob boss Mr. Reindeer to arrange his job, he adds Farragut to the hit list, sending Marietta into a guilt-fueled psychosis. Despite her attempts to save Farragut, Mr. Reindeer's assassins capture and kill him. Okay, so that was like a sentence for very long, very, very weird stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's we were talking earlier, I think Mr. Reindeer would have been the guy sitting on the toilet watching that topless woman dance. And then I think he calls one other person who is another rich gangster who's sitting there while there's two topless women that are like waiting on him.
That's Mr. Reindeer.
That's Mr. Reindeer.
Yeah.
So the gangster calls this guy, that guy calls Mr. Reindeer, which, by the way, that guy had like a like Pepto-Bismol was one of the things he was sitting around. You know what I mean? I just love that combination of like, of course I'm living a life of excess. Look at her breasts and she's got my tummy medicine. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think it's fun. I didn't realize that Marietta was going into a guilt-fueled psychosis. I don't know if that's why she starts rubbing that lipstick all over her face.
I picked up on that. I just didn't see the need for it.
Yeah, I didn't.
Like, she's such an inconsequential character to me that I was like, why does she get this much screen time other than to just have some middle-aged lady flailing about on screen for a while? I was like, this is weird.
Yeah. To me, I mean, again, I think it's just like playing around with that archetype of like, you know, mommy's never gonna let us be together, you know? But again, if it's not working for you, it's never gonna work. And then just, again, Mr. Reindeer's assassins capture and kill Harry Dean Stanton. And that's another, like, if you don't see this movie, maybe my suggestion would be to go just watch this scene where Harry Dean Stanton gets, like assaulted. He's like tied up and Isabella Rossellini and a group of like strange assassins have him in this weird kind of psychosexual thing. She does this thing where she like kisses the duct tape that's over his face and leaves this like cute lipstick mark, but like up and on the side of his face that like makes him look really cute while they're going through the process of like getting ready to almost like ritualistically kill him too, because it's like there's I don't know if you watched this with headphones or what kind of system you said, but there's like these like low like chanting drones going on underneath it. It's, you know, it's really kind of a scary image, I thought anyway. So anyway, they whack Harry Dean Stanton. Unaware of these events, Lula and Sailor continue on their way until they encounter the aftermath of a two-car collision. They try to help the only survivor, a traumatized and brain-damaged young woman who eventually dies right in front of them.
That actress was in Twin Peaks, too.
Oh, yeah? Who was she in Twin Peaks?
Audrey Horne.
Means nothing to me.
She's the one who flirts with Cooper all the time, like the high school student who's flirting with Coop. Her dad owns the hotel.
Gotcha. Wait, the hotel, the Red
Great
Room?
Northern.
No, the Great Northern. I don't know. I don't even know why I'm asking.
Ben
None of this means anything to me. I've only I don't think I've ever made it through both seasons of the TV show. But Fire Walk with Me. Sorry. Again, we're just like talking past each other about stuff. We're like I love those two you haven't seen. Fire. Yeah. Another one for the list. Just, I mean, if you're into Twin Peaks at all, it like takes the Twin Peaks schmaltziness and puts it more in the David Lynch world. So it might not end up working for you. But I thought, I watched that one recently and it really, really worked for me.
Doing those effects.
Just giving up those thumbs up. I hope the camera was capturing that. I don't even know if it actually did or not.
I hope it was.
Otherwise, I'm just like talking about a thumbs up that nobody else saw.
That would be better.
Yeah, it wouldn't be too bad. Anyway, the woman dies in front of them. Lula is disturbed and considers it a bad omen. She's also unsettled by Sailor's revelation that he had been Santos's driver and may have witnessed her father's murders by Santos and Marietta, which places him in the latter's crosshairs. So again, that's a bunch of like pulpy crime fiction-y nonsense that they sort of like, they lay out in this like really melodramatic way that, I don't know. I just loved it, where they're like, you should know that was the one who watched your daddy die working for all this stuff. I don't know. I just thought it was fun. Near penniless, Sailor heads for Big Tuna, Texas, where he asks old acquaintance Perdita Durango whether someone is after him. That would be Isabella Rossellini. Perdita, who we just watched kill, so she is technically after him at that moment, I think, right? Yeah. Right. Perdita says she is unaware of any murder contract, but is later revealed to be lying. Come on, Wikipedia, keep up. They go to an outdoor party. Lula and Sailor meet career criminal Bobby Peru.
Willem
Dafoe with his with his braces. The meanest braces looking guy I ever did see. Lula, who's been feeling ill, tells Sailor she is pregnant. While Sailor is changing their car's oil, Lula waits for him in their motel room. Peru, i.e. Willem Dafoe, enters the room, deduces Lula's pregnancy, and proceeds to intimidate, grope, and violently coerce her into asking him for sex. This like really creepy thing where she's like demanding that she ask to be sexually assaulted, essentially. It's that thing that like, it harkens back to, in that first scene, she talks about how she was sexually, or To be honest, I think she said something about, it starts out with a bunch of cliches about her mama knowing that she was wild since she was a kid. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, well, that's not right. You were sexually assaulted 3 years before that. And they like cut back to that heavy sexual assault. It's that thing where I think they're, playing around with like how do those wild cliches of people exist in the real world? Like, he's not wanting you to be like, oh, she's just a wild, sexually liberated, free spirit. He wants you to be like, oh, well, she is a wild and sexually liberated free spirit, and it's because she's been, abused her whole life and will continue to be abused. So it's that thing where it's like, it's a little hard to take, but, I thought the connection was interesting. Yeah. Let's see. When she finally does ask him for sex, he mockingly reveals his threats to be a bluff and then leaves. This traumatizes Lula, who was previously raped as a child. And that's the one where she like starts just like crying and screaming. Not out of nowhere, but in a real like, I don't know, in a real melodramatic way.
Yeah, very triggered.
Yeah. It's playing it to the rafters. Not knowing about this abuse, Sailor agrees to accompany William Defoe. That's not his name. Not knowing about Peru's abuse of Lula, Sailor agrees to accompany him to a bar. Over beers, Peru enlists Sailor's help in robbing a nearby feed store. During the robbery, Peru unnecessarily shoots the two store clerks and admits to Sailor that he had been hired to kill him, and that he handed Sailor a pistol with dummy ammunition. So it was set up so that Sailor would have been shot in any.
Yeah.
If things had worked out the way that Willem Dafoe had wanted, Nicolas Cage would have been shot. Chasing Sailor out of the store, Peru is repeatedly shot by a sheriff's deputy and accidentally blows his own head off with a shotgun. That moment was like a whoa out of nowhere for me in a way that like Lynch or not, he delivers those gut punches just incredibly well. Whether it's working for you or not, it's like it's working. I don't know if it's working for you, but it works.
Yeah, that was a cool moment. Yeah. I heard, not to interrupt, but I heard that like originally, I don't know if it was like the Cannes Film Festival. One film festival rated this movie NC-17, and he had to edit that part of the film in order to make it an R rating.
Oh,
so
sure.
I think they obscured it with like some sort of special effect in post to make it look like there was more smoke from the gun or something. But
Sure.
I remember reading that later.
Yeah. Sailor for this robbery and shooting, Sailor is sentenced to 6 years in prison for his part. While Sailor is in jail, Lula has their child. Lula decides to reunite with him upon his release, rejecting her mother's objections over the phone. She throws water over Marietta's phonograph, I almost said. She throws water over Marietta's photograph and goes to pick up Sailor with their son Pace. The reunion is awkward, and Sailor decides to leave them both, believing they will be better off without his influence. While he's walking a short distance away, Sailor is accosted by members of a street gang and is quickly knocked out after insulting them. While unconscious, he sees a vision of Glenda the Good Witch, who tells him, "Don't turn away from love, Sailor." When he awakens, Sailor apologizes to the men, tells them he realizes the errors of his ways, and runs after Lula. The photograph of Marietta in Lula's house sizzles and vanishes, symbolically mirrored in the demise of the Wicked Witch of the West. Oh. I don't know if I caught that in the moment, but that makes sense.
They talk about the Wizard of Oz a lot in this movie.
They do, and that's a thing that like this is based on a novel, but Lynch adapted it and then added all of that. So that like was not like a reference at all. Right. There's like a part where they're like driving down the road and they like look over and her mom is there as the Wicked Witch of the West, like flying next to them.
I think they talk about the Yellow Brick Road at one point too.
Yeah. I mean, which makes sense. We're following the Yellow Brick Road to where it leads at the end, and then they end up in, I can't remember where it was, Tuna, Texas. Yeah. It kind of reminded me. Did you ever watch that Robert Durst documentary, the guy who murdered a bunch of different people? Well, it's an HBO documentary, and it's really, really good. He confesses, spoilers, he confesses to the murder on camera accidentally. But jail. Yeah. But in the first season, and the second season follows him while they go through the crimes for that stuff now. But that guy, at one point, he ran away from his like third murder charge and ended up in, I want to say, he like took Route 66 as far as Route 66 would go and ended up in Texas. And that's where he was like hiding out. And that's what this really reminded me of when they get to that part of the town where it's like, for, people that are confined to America, this is the end of the road, And that was another, like, I thought that was really great storytelling. I thought that captured that really well.
Also, the gal who plays the Wicked Witch, or the Good Witch, Glinda, is also in Twin Peaks.
Who's she in Twin Peaks?
Laura Palmer.
That's Laura Palmer? Glinda Good Witch is, wow, that's crazy.
Yep.
Playing Glenn. Oh, Glenn to the Glenn, just the Glenn to the Good Witch.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had my witches confused. I was
No, the
confusing
bit when
Wicked Witch
she's
of the
in
West.
the dream, like
Right,
where
right,
he
right.
gets knocked out and she's like, "Don't give up on love, sailor." That's Laura Palmer.
Sure, that makes sense. Do you know that Laura Palmer, that she was a local actor that he picked up and was just like, and originally they were just going to use the photograph, and he was like, "Oh, that's another thing where he's like, oh, I found an actor who will do my weird shit that'll work well with me, and just like leaned into it, and then a player for life, down to the bitter end." Let's see, where were we? Again, that the photo, the house, the photo of the mom sizzles and disappears. Sailor runs over the roofs and hoods of cars in a traffic jam to reunite with Lula and Pace. When he catches up with them, he finally sings "Love Me Tender" to Lula, effectively proposing to her.
That was kind of a cool moment when he was like doing that traffic jam and running over the tops of the cars. Like, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I've seen that done a bunch, but it was kind of cool.
Yeah, and I kind of thought the same thing about the running into the gang and getting his ass knocked out. Like, I had that same thing where it's like, oh, of course he takes like 5 steps away from her and gets like his ass handed to him by a gang.
One thing about that scene was he uses the F slur, which would not have been that weird for the time period, but like as of today in the year of our Lord 2025, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that had more pop to it than I think it would have back then. But I was like, yikes.
Totally. Okay, well, that's the end of it. It's interesting. Like, this is a hard film to cover narratively because it's like there are like, I think I already mentioned, there are lots of like kind of weird crime details, but essentially like you're watching two lovers run away together from their commitments, and you think it's probably not going to end well. I mean, I would, watching it from the beginning, has that sort of Romeo and Juliet vibe.
It's very like The Outsiders meets Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
Or like a James Dean version of Romeo and Juliet. I also got a weird thought when I was watching this. Have you ever seen True Romance?
It's been a while, but yeah.
Quentin Tarantino. I had a very similar vibe between this movie and True Romance. Obviously, this came out first, but just that same thing where it's like the 90s throwing back to the 50s, where Christian Slater has that kind of like slick back greaser look. I mean, this happens in a lot of Tarantino stuff. For sure. But I was like, oh, this is weird. Maybe that's just like a thing that happened in the 90s a bunch.
Right. And I think it's like an archetype that's not as, I think it's so played out that we don't see it as much, of like the like tragically crossed lovers, where it's like they're meant to be together. We can tell from like the beginning, and I think you get that vibe with that Tarantino film too, where like you can tell from the beginning that it's probably going to end in tragedy, or it's going to be at least, an epically arduous journey to like get to come together. But that's what we're watching true love conquering all. Looking over my notes, a couple of things that like didn't get into this discussion that I thought was interesting. Oh man, the like fetishization of the smoking.
That's in all of Lynch's stuff that I've seen.
Yeah.
It's huge in Twin Peaks, and it's big in this movie, and I get a little tired of it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, this one was particularly interesting because they like were sitting around talking about how they're like smoking and it's bad for them, and like it's again that thing where they're telling and not showing about how it's like a sign of their bad childhood. They're like ripping it back. But just these beautiful shots of these close-up shots of the cigarettes burning. And I don't know. It's so pretty, but it's really interesting because like is it COPD that he died from? Do you remember what's the acronym that Lynch died from?
Cardiac something pulmonary disease.
Yeah, I think it's COPD.
Yeah,
but it's like directly related to his smoking.
Emphysema.
Yeah, to his emphysema. And it was interesting because like maybe a month before he passed, he put out a statement where he was like, I can't. He's so confined. He's basically confined to his home towards the end.
He was on oxygen.
Yeah, because he couldn't leave. So he was like, I'm never going to direct from outside of the home again because I can't handle it. But even when he did that, he put out this really interesting statement about like how much he loved smoking cigarettes and how soothing and how he did it constantly, and it was like a great thing for him. And so it's just a fascinating thing to be like, watching somebody, that we watch a month later die from cigarettes, be like, just like love, like yet another love poem about smoking, I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting thing and pretty, central to the Lynchiness. Let me see what else. There's one point where Nicolas Cage was talking through a story, and he said that he followed her into a room full of assault weapons and Spank House magazines. That was pretty good. What did they say? Oh, he called himself a murderer, and they called him instead a manslaughterer. They wanted to correct it. Should we start a band called Manslaughterer?
No.
Manslaughterer.
No.
Opening for Power Mad.
Yeah, that was Bart. He's like, I'm a murderer, baby. And she's like, you're not a murderer, sailor. It was manslaughter. And I was like, oh my God.
Fine, baby. I'm a manslaughterer. I dug it. But yeah, anyway, and then I think there's one point, I think it's right before they go and see the concert where they're like excited about going dancing, and Nicolas Cage does a front flip out of the car.
Yep.
And then they like start dancing in the desert. God, I thought that was so fucking fun. If Nicolas Cage could front flip out of everything to like start a scene or end a scene, like, I don't know. I would watch any movie where you get Nicolas Cage front flipping out of anything into anything. I thought it was so fun and so weird. Yeah, dude, I don't know. I thought that there was like an abortion clip in there. We watched like a clip of, I think it was it Lula having an abortion? Or maybe it was giving birth.
I think it was giving birth.
Yeah, because it cuts in on that. It's like a shot of her, and it's like her face being magnified by like the kind of magnifying glass that you would have like in a doctor's office, you know, and just like her look of pain. I don't know. I just thought it was like beautifully framed. I wrote down Glenda should float down at the end of more movies. Like when you don't have a good ending for your movie, I think Glenda the Good Witch should show up and be like, remember the theme of today's film, please. Goodbye. Oh. Yeah, dude, that's pretty much it. I think for me, it did start to lose me at times where it got like too soapy. I think that there were some times when it was treading a line, and I thought it was really interesting and worthwhile, and I learned a lot from it. But yeah, like when it got a little too soap operatic, which is my problem with Twin Peaks too. When it gets a little too much into the soap stuff instead of like the weird, like comedy of the small town crime that they're looking at. Yeah, that was where it would lose me. Yeah,
I think maybe one of the things in hindsight that works so well about Twin Peaks is it's like a dozen different characters. Like instead of just being Lula and Sailor all of the time, it's like that like 12 different people were following around. So there's enough, I think, variance in who we're seeing that it isn't as grating because not everybody is as melodramatic as everybody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you like are going to spend a little time with the log lady and like punch up. And Twin Peaks is like a collaboration. I don't remember the other artist, but there's like David Lynch and another guy where it's like combining David Lynch's weirdness with that other guy's soap opera-iness.
I follow him on Twitter.
Oh, yeah?
I don't remember his name. It's like, it starts with an M.
I'm going to look. You talk, I'll look.
The other thing that I really hated about this movie and that I tend to hate about Nicolas Cage movies is anything where he does an accent. He is like the worst actor I've ever seen do accents. Mark Frost.
Yeah, Mark Frost, David Lynch.
Yeah.
Twin Peaks.
Mark Frost is active on Twitter. He's a funny guy. But I just am so sick of Nicolas Cage doing accents. Like, have you ever seen Con Air?
Yes. But like, it's so fun, you know? Doesn't work for you?
But between his like crappy wig and his terrible accents, I'm just like, dude, I like Con Air a lot. But I like Con Air because I like John Malkovich. Or is that Ving Rhames that's in that one too? But like, I love that kind of movie. Like his act, like, I don't think Nicolas Cage is a great actor, but he's fun in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't like him in this.
Yeah. I think Nicolas Cage definitely doesn't work for me a lot of the time. But what I appreciate about Nicolas Cage is that he's like willing to go there.
He commits.
You know?
Like,
yeah. Again, I'm just like repeating stuff I've heard off the Blank Check podcast, but I can't remember what I was listening to where they were talking about Nick Cage. Maybe it was this, it might have been the episode on this film, but they were talking about how he has this sense of playing like the opera of a film. You know, he's looking at it from like a third person perspective and like adding his take on it with that in mind in a way that like makes things strange sometimes, but it's like, oh, at least there's like, you know, a thought process in there that I thought was pretty interesting. I was going to ask you, Jeff, what do you not a Nicolas Cage accent fan, what do you think of the Coen brothers Raising Arizona?
I've never seen it.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I don't. Maybe you'd hate it. You hated this, but it's got so much of like. Do you know the premise of Raising Arizona?
Some of the baby, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of got like a gothic noir crime thing. So it's got that Coen, but it's like a Coen Brothers-y take on this same sort of a.
Those are all words that I like.
Yeah. It's a Coen Brothers take on this same sort of a thing where Nicolas Cage and. Does he steal the baby? I don't remember who exactly steals a baby, but they steal a baby, and then Nicolas Cage and who's the partner? Is it Holly Hunter are gonna raise that baby as their own, but the baby belongs to like a rich person who sends out somebody who comes from. So they have this thing where like they're out in the woods, out somewhere raising the baby, and you just like watch this motorcycle that's like the person that's coming to like destroy them is like a hurricane of it's got the same kind of like it's playing with melodrama and opera in a way that is kind of hooked into the Coen brothers sort of quaint weirdness as opposed to David Lynch's like way out there expressionistic weirdness,
sure.
But it does a lot of the same stuff, and it's a terrible Southern accent from Nick Cage, but in a way that I love. I mean,
quit paying this man money to
love
do
it.
voices. It's
so
like
funny.
It's like he just does not accept dialect coaches. He's just like, no, get out of here. I'll do it myself.
This is another thumbs up. Well, I apparently agree with that. According to the video,
I don't know that I've seen a funny Coen Brothers movie. They did No Country for Old Men, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love No Country for Old Men. I don't think I could name another Coen Brothers film.
Okay. Well, we should definitely do some Coen Brothers. I think their comedies when they're hitting are so damn good. Wait, so have you seen The Big Lebowski?
That Coen Brothers?
Yeah.
Okay, then I have seen it.
Okay. I mean, that's a weird one for them because it's like their weird like stoner comedy.
Yeah. I
that
love
like
The Big
tanked
Lebowski.
at the time. But yeah, that's Barton Fink.
Nope.
Barton Fink. That's about a playwright who gets hired in, I want to say like the 1920s. He gets like brought to Hollywood to begin writing
Is that a Johnny
screenplays.
Depp movie?
No, who plays Barton Fink? It's got John Goodman in it and a bunch of the. Hold on, let me look it up. Tell me, internet, tell me who's in Barton Fink. Is it Adrian Brody? John Turturro? Oh, it's John Turturro is the playwright that they like. He has a really successful play, and they're like, "Come to Hollywood, we're gonna take care of you." Mm-hmm. And then it's just like a weird nightmare about being like inducted into the Hollywood machine.
Oh,
yeah.
Coen Brothers did Oh Brother Where Art Thou?
Hell yeah.
Okay, who am I thinking of?
I don't know. Tell me about him.
I do know the Coen Brothers.
Yeah, but who are you thinking? Give me some bits and pieces.
At first, I was thinking like the brothers who made The Matrix.
Oh, the Wachowskis.
But then I was like, I know that's not right.
Yeah.
I was like, it's not those guys.
Just so we're keeping updated. They're not brothers anymore.
That's
both
right.
transitioned.
That's right.
So the
right.
Wachowskis, I think we go are the Wachowskis, but
correct. My bad. And then is it the Duplass brothers?
Yeah. They're another two. We're doing all the like the mumblecore stuff.
Yeah.
And then they're both on like different TV shows and have gotten famous, but they did a bunch of like like $5 stuff that they shot on their like cameras.
Yeah, I saw Safety Not Guaranteed.
Yeah, that's one of the Duplasses,
movie.
yeah.
But okay, now I'm Coen Brothers. I'm on. Yeah, I like the Coen Brothers.
My favorite Duplass, I don't think it's both of them. I think it's just one of them. Is a mockumentary, found footage documentary called Creep. Have you ever heard of that?
I see it on Netflix, but I haven't watched it.
If you ever, I mean, it's not. I think it's good. I think they've made 2 movies and then a TV series. I haven't seen the TV series because the second movie wasn't very good, and it's got an indie charm. I love a film that I can like feel how they made it. I think it's because I'm an aspiring filmmaker. One of the last things that I want to get done is like get something produced of some decent quality, in some respect. But that one is so like simple. It's one person interviewing another person. It's like Mark Duplass hired this person to come and film them, and they're putting together a documentary series for. I think he says he has cancer, if I remember right, and he wants to film this for posterity for his child.
I always thought Creep was a horror movie.
It is.
Oh, okay.
Like that's how it starts, and then he gets that guy out in the middle of nowhere with him.
I was like, that doesn't sound scary at all.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. I don't want to spoil it too much because it's definitely worth checking out if you're into horror. But it's like 2 people total could have shot the whole movie, and like for less than a couple $1,000s, it felt like. And I love movies like that because it like gives me confidence that someday I'm going to be able to figure out how to do that and put together something finally, put a film a baby and put it out into the world. I guess you don't film babies, or you make your baby, your film is your baby. Yeah, true that. All right, buddy. I think I'm wild at hearted out. I think I've got everything I needed to say. Do you have any last thoughts?
From wild at heart, for sure.
Okay, yeah, so I suppose we should wrap it up. So again, this is all films worth watching. So the question is, Jeff, do you think this film is worth watching, those who haven't seen it? If so, why? If not, why not?
Yes, because I think it has a place in the cultural zeitgeist of stylistic filmmaking. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think I just don't like it.
Sure.
And I think that's an important distinction.
It's like a well-made movie that you did not enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I just didn't care for it. I like David Lynch a lot. I think he's a good director. I think his style just does not always zhuzh with me. And this was one that did not zhuzh.
Yeah.
So I would say watch it.
To me, like I love a filmmaker who like is polarizing for me like that, where it's like if they take big enough swings there, I'm like, oh man, I hated that. Like I love that in a film, in a challenging filmmaker like that. I think that's great. Yeah. Okay. My opinion. Yeah. Definitely think it's worth watching. If you like David Lynch's sort of tone poem and sort of his like go-to tricks, the use of like drones, the sound design, there's some beautiful edits. I think this one is beautifully shot again, compared to like Inland Empire, which I think looks like shit. This is, it's beautiful. And I like that it's paired with that like star-crossed lovers being pursued by a mother that doesn't want them together. The fact that it is sort of grafted to that kind of tropey plot helps sort of maintain some of that tone, free flow, tonal vibiness of Lynch. So, that's my 2 cents. I think we're both sort of in the same spot. If you're into Lynch, or you think that you're into Lynch, it's worth a watch. If you're not into Nicolas Cage, maybe skip it, leave it up to you. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you have seen this, if you haven't seen this, while you're at it, what Nick Cage movies are the pinnacle. I'm not a major Nick Cage guy either. I'm curious if there's anybody out there, all 6 people that are listening, what Nick Cage should be on the list of all films worth watching.
I'll tell you right now.
What should we be considering? Oh yeah, you're gonna tell me? Lay it out.
Nicolas Cage movies that I think are important. I like Moonstruck a lot, which is weird because I'm not usually like a rom-com guy.
That's a great. Who's that written? That's written and directed by what's his name? He wrote Danny in the Deep Blue Sea, that play.
What's
his name?
John Michael
Shanley, is that right?
Yeah.
Let me see if it's written and directed. I think it is. Written by John Patrick Shanley, directed by Norman Jewison?
No idea.
Anyway, written by John Patrick Shanley, who another
brilliant playwright.
Big swing. Yeah, great playwright, interesting filmmaker, hit or miss.
Yeah. So I like Moonstruck a lot. I think Face Off is like an all-time Nick Cage.
Yeah.
Because it's Nick Cage pretending to be John Travolta, which is like fascinating.
That's great.
So I like that one. I think it was in like 99 or 2000. He did this one, a remake of Gone in 60 Seconds with like Giovanni Ribisi is in it and Angelina Jolie and some other people that I think is actually like genuinely a good movie.
Yeah.
I like that movie a lot. Like, no sarcasm, that I think that's a good movie, and he's really good in it. But he's not like pushing real hard.
Sure.
He plays this dude named Memphis Reigns, and I was like, God, you have to have a stupid name all of the time. But yeah, so he's in Gone 60 Seconds. Also, National Treasure. Like,
oh yeah.
I only care about the first National Treasure, but like the first National Treasure, when he says, "We're gonna steal the Declaration of Independence," like, chills. That movie sucks, and it's so great. And then Mandy.
Mandy. I don't think I'm even familiar with Mandy.
Dog. If you the perfect weird ultra violent Nicolas Cage. I'm shocked you haven't seen Mandy. Just stunned.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, I'm not like, especially when he was in his like I will shoot anything, I have to like paying for like a mausoleum. I know he's one of those people that had like
built his own tomb. In
yeah,
New
I think so. I
Orleans.
mean, I think that is that right? Yeah, some like crazy vampire shit where it's like I need to shoot 5 movies a year or I'm not gonna be able to keep my vampire mausoleum. You know,
he did like some weird period stuff. He did like Season of the Witch or whatever. It was like The Sorcerer's Apprentice or something. So he did some weird shit. Mandy's one of them. It's in 2018, and it's like. It's a trip. You should watch Mandy. I'm gonna have to put that on the list because it's bonkers.
All right. Well, maybe we'll see. Well, let's check out Mandy. Anyway, folks, if you're listening and interested, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Lynch. Like, what Lynch is worth watching, what Lynch is worth skipping. Nick Cage, what you think is worth watching, what you think is worth skipping. I think we're about done, Jeff. The one thing we have to do is figure out what movie we're going to watch next time.
Right.
Yeah. I think you have 2 suggestions.
I have 2 suggestions for you. So you can watch. Or we can watch Millennium Actress by Satoshi Kon, or you can choose to watch Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels by there's the balloons again. That has to be recorded.
I guess so.
Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels by Guy Ritchie.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting call. Okay.
So an anime versus a British gangster film.
Yeah. Have you seen any Satoshi Kon movies?
I've seen Perfect Blue.
Perfect Blue. Okay, that one I haven't seen either. And he's only made 4.
4 or 5. It's very limited.
Yeah, he made one TV series, Paranoia Agent, I think, which I've seen about half of, which is fucking batshit. And then, I haven't seen Millennium Actress. That's on my list. I've seen
Paprika too, I
Paprika.
think.
Yeah, he's made Paprika, and then I think there's one more that I missed. It's my new favorite Christmas movie, Tokyo Godfathers. Dude.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not familiar.
Oh, it's so crazy. It's about homeless people in Tokyo around Christmas that find a baby, and it's just like a sweet holiday movie about like being homeless and
Taking care of a baby.
But it's just fascinating. It's such a great movie. All right. Well, Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, smoking barrels. Talk about smoking. Or Millennium. Well, I don't know. I've almost watched all the Satoshi Kon. I think we should probably do that.
Millennium Actress?
Millennium Actress it is. All right, so join us next month. We will be talking about Millennium Actress. Thank you so much for joining us on All Films Worth Watching. I've been Thomas.
I'm Jeff.
We should come up with a sign-off. We'll do that next time, maybe.
Peace.
See if we make the balloons again. Yeah, there it is. Balloons. God, I hope they're there. It's going to make no sense if not in real life.
Is it just every time we go like this? Oh, you can't do it like this. That's bad. You got to go like this.